Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire Nashtaprayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtiki. So continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3, text 36 onwards. So far Krishna told Arjun that you should do your duty, and even if you don't have to, like for a self-realized person, Krishna explained they don't have to do the duty, but they still do the duty to set an example for others to follow. And then Krishna gave his own example that if I don't do my duty, then the whole world will be put to ruination. And then next theme Krishna described that it's better to discharge one's own duties meant in Varnashram system improperly or faultily than others' duties properly. Why? Because Arjun was thinking of going to the forest and living the duty of a Kshatriya. And Krishna said this will create more chaos in the society. Everybody likes others like this. In the grass is greener on the other side of the fence. So they like others' duties. Shudras like Brahmans' duties, or Shudras might like Kshatriya's duties, and Kshatriya might like Vaishya's duties. So it will be complete chaos because their inherent nature will not match with the work that they're performing. So they will not be at peace, and they cannot do others' duties nicely. The whole aim of Varnashram system is one should make advancement in spiritual ultimately. But so that Krishna is saying should do one's prescribed duties. So now Arjun is asking a question. Arjun vacha athaken payuktoyam papam charati purusha anichannapi varshneya baladev niyojitaha. Arjun said, O descendant of Vrishni, by what is one impelled to sinful acts, even unwillingly, as if engaged by force? So Krishna talked about everybody's duties. One should do one's duties, and then he said everybody, to set an example, one should do his duties properly. Because every ashram system is what? One has some characteristics that one is born with. His own sanskaras are there, his own advancement to whatever extent in devotional life, spirituality is there. His past experiences are there, and so he comes with this whole baggage. So now Arjun is asking, then why does somebody commit sin as if impelled by force? Means Arjun is saying nobody wants to. Some people don't want to commit sin, but still they do that. In the purport Prabhupada's writing, a living entity as part and parcel of the Supreme is originally spiritual, pure, and free from all material contaminations. Therefore, by nature, he is not subject to the sins of the material world. But when he is in contact with the material nature, he acts in so many sinful ways without hesitation, and sometimes even against his will. Against his will means sometimes the mind takes over the intelligence. So intelligence says, don't do it, don't do it, don't. But mind says, no, I want to do it, I want to do it, I want to do it. As such, Arjuna's question to Krishna is very sanguine as to the perverted nature of the living entities. So although the living entity sometimes does not want to act in sin, he is still forced to act. Sinful actions are not however, impelled by the supersoul within, but are due to another cause, as the Lord explains in the next verse. So, sinful actions are not impelled by the Lord. We cannot say, हम ये नहीं कह सकते कि भगवान ने मेरे से ऐसा करवा दिया, मैं तो नहीं करना चाहता था, भगवान ने करवा दिया. We cannot do that. श्री भगवान उवाच कामेश क्रोधेश रजोगुण समुद्भवा महाशनो महापापा विद्येनम हि वैरिणम्. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, it is lust only, Arjun, which is born of contact with the material mode of passion and later transformed into wrath, and which is the all-devouring sinful enemy of this world. So lust. So what we have to understand, what is lust? Lust is explained in Chaitanya Charitamrita. If one desires to satisfy his senses in whichever way, that is lust. If one desires to satisfy Krishna's senses, that is love. So that lust is not only the way it is projected in the material world. That is lust. That's also lust. But anyway, we want to satisfy our own senses without trying to please Krishna, without trying to serve Krishna. That is lust. That is calm. And from that calm, everything starts. Like when we say, no, there are 6 anarthas in everybody's heart, and it starts with kam, krodh, lobh, moh, mad, matsarya. So that is a calm. That it starts with that only. And then Krishna says, it is lust only. Lust means our desire to enjoy separately from Krishna, and which is born with the contact with the material mode of passion, later transformed into wrath. Because lust, if it is not fulfilled, it becomes wrath. That's like we studied in 2nd chapter. So Prabhupada writes, when a living entity comes in contact with the material creation, his eternal love for Krishna is transformed into lust in association with the mode of passion. So material world is basically made of mode of passion. And then later on we can, because for any creation passion is required. And later on either we go up or we go down. Either mode of ignorance or mode of goodness. So Prabhupada is writing, or in other words, the sense of love of God becomes transformed into lust as milk in contact with sour tamarind is transformed into yogurt. Then again, when lust is unsatisfied, it turns into wrath. Wrath means anger. Wrath is transformed into illusion, and illusion continues the material existence. Therefore, lust is the greatest enemy of the living entity. And it is lust only which induces the pure living entity to remain entangled in the material world. So that is because of lust, or because of our desire to fulfill our own senses demands, is what keeps us in the material world. Because these senses can never be satisfied, never. Just like once Akbar asked Birbal that till what time these senses bother a person, keep on. And Birbal said even till the time of death. Even if the body is become feeble, bodies become old, bodies become fragile, mind has gone senile, but still the senses are so strong, they still want, they demand satisfaction. So Akbar said, no, I don't believe it. I mean, at certain time, senses would give up. Birbal said, okay, I have to give him some practical demonstration. So it so happened, after a few days, the Birbal found out there was a very old man in the kingdom and he was on his deathbed. So he asked Akbar, let's go to see that old man, and he has served you nicely. Let's go and see him. He is on his deathbed. So Akbar said, yeah, why not? And Birbal said, okay, Akbar, why don't you take your young daughter also with you? Akbar said, okay. So the 3 of them went to see this old, very old, dying man. And as soon as they entered his room, and he was old, and he saw Akbar Maharaj has come, but he was still looking at the daughter of Akbar Maharaj. Because his senses were still so impetuous, they were still thinking of gratification. And then Prabhupada writes, um, so wrath is a manifestation of the mode of ignorance. These modes exhibit themselves as wrath and other corollaries. If therefore the mode of passion, instead of being degraded into the mode of ignorance, is elevated to the mode of goodness by the prescribed method of living and acting, then one can be saved from the degradation of wrath by spiritual attachment. So, living entity is basically born in the mode of passion when he is first enters the material world. But then either he can go down or go up. But generally, he goes down, down, down. And then, if he comes in contact with the saintly devotees and he takes up the process of yoga or bhakti, he can elevate himself. So that's why this to elevate the material creation is created by the Lord to give facility to the conditioned souls to fulfill these lustful propensities. And when completely baffled by prolonged lustful activities, the living entities begin to inquire about their real position. So this is the whole process when we are completely baffled by prolonged lustful activities. But these lustful activities, lust is again not only that we know of sexual attraction only can be lustful. It that we want our senses with. So we are in the path of bhakti. Actually, in the bhakti or yoga, then somebody says, why in the world are we performing these yogic activities or devotional service? Well, what happens is, suppose in a room, the room is very dirty, the floor is full of dust, and it has settled for such a long time, and we start cleaning it up. So what happens when we are cleaning up the floor with the broom, the dust it flies in the air also. We are cleaning up lots of it, but lots of dust also flies up in the air and it bothers us. So when we are performing this bhakti yoga or any other yogic practice, there's so much of lust in our heart from so times immemorial. It's been settled there. The lust is the desire to enjoy the senses, different senses. Every life we have desires are left unfulfilled. Some desires are left partially fulfilled and partially unfulfilled. So they are still there. The desires are there. So they need to be fulfilled. They want to be. But when we are doing bhakti, like when we chant the Hare Krishna mantra, then Krishna goes inside the heart and starts cleansing the heart. But the dust now is getting cleansed. But lots of dust arises, and it bothers us more because now the cleanse process has taken place. So that's why in the process of any yogic process, when we are trying to make advancement, these propensities will come out more in our heart. Sometimes the propensities are there. We might even think, I never thought of doing all these things. Why is it coming in front? Why I'm desiring to do all these things? Because they are very long, unfulfilled desires. They are stuck there, but now cleansing has started. So some desires are there. So we have to learn to tolerate. And even if that's why it is said, even if somebody falls down, we were studying in Srimad Bhagavatam, Narad Muni is saying, even if somebody falls down in the beginning stages because of immaturity, still there is no loss. Because first of all, the lust is there, the desires are there, and sometimes they take over. Intelligence gets taken over by the mind. Although intelligence should control the mind, but many times mind takes over the intelligence. So a person gets into the trap of desiring, of fulfilling these innate, the really deep down desires. But at the same time, we have to understand that he is getting cleansed. The cleansing process is taking place. It could be that the new desires are there. It is always possible. But even if it is the new desires, if it, that's what I posted that Bhagavad Gita 9.30 and 31. And even if it is new desires and person commits some sinful activity, it is still okay. Krishna says, if he's still engaged in my service, he should be considered as a sadhu. And Krishna doesn't only talk about um, a simple sinful man. He says, apis chet suduracharo, not just durachari, not just bad person, a very bad person. But if he is engaged in my service, he should be considered as a sadhu. That's Krishna's declaration. Next is the Kship Dharmatma. But there was a question raised Bhaktivinoda Thakur. No, it was raised to why he is going to become a Dharmatma later on. The Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains that no, not him. He is already a Mahatma. But a person, a third person who sees that devotee, although he is a Sudurachari, but he is engaged in devotional service, and and that person should be considered Mahatma. So that third person who is looking at this Durachari person as Mahatma, he will very soon become a Dharmatma. That's how obliged Krishna is to these surrendered souls. And this is what it is. And this is what Arjun is asking. Many times we don't want to commit these sinful activities, but still, balad means when forcefully we are made. Because, yes, mind takes over the intelligence. It happens. We are in the material world. We have fallen here. We are not in the spiritual world. If we have to act perfectly, then we would be in the spiritual world. So the very reason we are in the material world is we have fallen. We are lusty people. Lusty in the sense we want to satisfy our own senses. So it is natural. Well, natural in the sense a person will do these kind of activities. Like they say, no, to err is human, and to admit is divine. Yes, I have erred. I'm fallen. I made mistakes. Still, because the devotees are very merciful, they still give him the association. They still give him inspiration, motivation, encouragement to carry on. Look at Prabhupada, how much motivation he gave to everybody, to all his disciples. And then Krishna explains nicely what is this degree of lust. Dhumena vriyate vaner yatha darsho malena cha yathol pena vrito garbhas tatha tene dhumavritam. As fire is covered by smoke, as a mirror is covered by dust, or as an embryo is covered by the womb, the living entity is similarly covered by different degrees of lust. So these different degrees, like fire is covered by smoke. So this is very thin covering. Very soon the smoke goes away and the fire, we can see the fire. So this is the degree of lust that is covering the human beings. Mirror is covered by dust. This is a degree of covering on animals or birds. And the embryo is covered by womb. Embryo covered by womb, this covering is very thick. So this is for the plants or insects. They are so much of an ignorance. So the consciousness is so much covered over. Mirror covered by dust. This covering is still comparatively compared to embryo in the womb. It is lesser. but compared to fire by smoke, it's more thick. There are 3 degrees of covering of the living entity by which his pure consciousness is obscured. This covering is but lust under different manifestations, like smoke in the fire, dust on the mirror, and the womb about the embryo. When the lust is compared to smoke, it is understood that the fire of the living spark can be a little perceived. In other words, when the living entity exhibits his Krishna consciousness slightly, he may be likened to the fire covered by smoke. So this stage is like the beginning of Krishna consciousness. The dust on the mirror refers to the cleansing process of the mirror of the mind by so many spiritual methods. The Prabhupada said the best process is to chant the holy names of the Lord. The embryo covered by the womb is an analogy illustrating a helpless position, for the child in the womb is so helpless that he cannot even move. This stage of living condition can be compared to that of the trees. So the trees are also living entities, but they have been put in such a condition of life by such a great exhibition of lust that they are almost void of all consciousness. In fact, it is mentioned in the scriptures that people who like human beings who like to remain naked in this life, I mean, they don't like to put on clothes, whether they are in like forest dwellers or in the cities. Forest dwellers, at least they don't have clothes, they don't have an option. But in the cities, they have an option, but they like to roam around naked. Or most of the time, they like to flaunt their bodies, whether men or women. Then it is said the next life they will become trees. They'll take birth of trees. So trees, as trees, they can stand there naked for so many years, no problem. And because there's so much of ignorance. And also, one place it is said that Mayavadis who follow this Mayavadi philosophy of impersonalism, because they're in so much of ignorance, they are also born as trees next life. So we have to be very careful. Text 39. Avritam jnanam etena jnanino nityavarina kamrupena konteya dushpurena analena cha. Thus, a wise living entity's pure consciousness becomes covered by his eternal enemy in the form of lust, which is never satisfied and which burns like fire. So, this is how the unfulfilled desires bother us. They burn like fire. And it is an eternal enemy. In fact, this was the reason we fell down in the material world. We didn't want to serve Krishna in the world, we wanted to enjoy separately from Krishna. Somehow that property. It is said in Manusmriti that lust can be satisfied by extinguished by a constant supply of fuel. In the material world, the center of all activities is sex, and thus this material world is called Mathunya Agar, or the shackles of sex life. In the ordinary prison house, criminals are kept within bars. Similarly, the criminals who are disobedient to the laws of the Lord are shackled by sex life. So, advancement of material civilization on the basis of sense gratification means increasing the duration of the material existence of a living entity. Therefore, this lust is a symbol of ignorance by which the living entity is kept within the material world. While one enjoys sense gratification, it may be that there is some feeling of happiness, but actually, that so called feeling of happiness is the ultimate enemy of the sense enjoyer. So, Prabhupada writes a strong purport. But as I said, even when we are making advancement in devotion life or in yoga practice, these desires, they come out more in front of us. So either when we are performing devotion service, chanting, there is much of pure energy is also generated. So we have to transform our desires, these lusty into some, then that energy has to be dissipated somehow, either by exercise, by yoga, or that's why some people, they just satisfy the senses. Okay, you're satisfied, don't bother me anymore, and I can carry on with my bhakti process. But that satisfaction or any other process, because when bhakti is going on, chanting is going on, desires, which are deep down desires, they'll start to come up again. So this is actually a constant struggle in the life of a transcendentalist, in the life of any yogi. Even if the yogis, those who go to Himalayas to do tapasya, over there they cannot so they cannot use the body in sense enjoyment, but the mind still wanders off. We'll see that in chapter 6, where Krishna explains Dhyana Yoga. A mind is so difficult to control. Even for those yogis who are sitting in Himalayas in the caves, and in the bitter cold, or in the summer, they start lighting up the fire all around them, so that they cannot even think of enjoying the senses. But mind still goes here and there. That is mind. So best process is, even if somebody uh, falls down, or I won't call it a fall down, it just for a moment he gets distracted, come back again, come back again, come back again, again and again and again and again. The best process. There is no such thing as completely pure divine person in this material world. Okay, some could be that Prabhupada has sent or Krishna has sent, but other than that, so we all are fallen. Some are fallen more than others. That's all. So we have to help each other. We have to motivate each other, encourage each other, inspire each other. Give our association, take their association, take the association of folks. So we all can rise above these propensities. That's all the process is. And more we help each other with compassion. Just like other day I posted the meaning of compassion. Compassion and pity. It sound, they look like the same, but no. Pity is when we're looking down upon somebody. Compassion is trying to help somebody with the real helping thoughts or desires, so that he can also make progress. So that's compassion. So that's when we display that, try to help others while we ourselves are struggling. This is what pleases Krishna and Guru, and then they help both of us. And that is a whole process of bhakti yoga. Other processes, person is on its own to make progress. He can take instructions from others, but like in yoga practice as hatha yoga, nobody can do hatha yoga for me, or nobody can make me sit straight or whatever. They teach us, and then you are on your own. But in bhakti, it's a different process. That's why bhakti yoga is more sublime and more powerful. Of course, Krishna says, Indriyani manobuddhi rasyadhisthana muchyate eter vimohyati esha jnanam avritya dehinam. The senses, the mind, and the intelligence are sitting places of this lust. Through them, lust covers the real knowledge of the living entity and bewilders him. So, where does this lust sit? The senses, the mind, and the intelligence. And Prabhupada writes, the enemy has captured different strategic positions in the body of the conditioned soul. And therefore, Lord Krishna is giving hints of those places so that one who conquer the enemy may know where he can be found. Mind is the center of all activities of the senses. And thus, when you hear about sense objects, the mind generally becomes a reservoir of all ideas of sense gratification. And as a result, the mind and the senses become the repositories of lust. Next, the intelligence department becomes a capital of such lustful propensities. Intelligence is the immediate next door neighbor of the spirit soul, because we have the subtle bodies, mind, intelligence, false ego. So the intelligence is very close to the spirit soul. Lusty intelligence influences the spirit soul to acquire the false ego, identify itself the man, and thus mind the senses. The spirit just has lust in our bodies, senses, mind, and intelligence. Prabhupada writes it's an enemy. But the enemy, this enemy actually is in the form of a spy. What does a spy do in a war? Spy enters the enemy's territory and he mingles with those soldiers as one of their own. So the soldiers, they start trusting this spy, and the spy gathers the data and he creates more destruction than the soldier who's on the other side of the border and fighting, because spy is doing the destruction from within, and he acts, sounds, talks, walks exactly like these soldiers. So it is the lust actually, when it enters into our heart, it is does the work of a spy. Means we want to make progress in bhakti, and this spy enters and he makes us think that we are really enjoying our senses. Although the real enjoyment of the soul is in devotion service. But the spy makes the senses think, oh, you do this, you will enjoy. You really enjoy. And so this is more dangerous than the enemy that is outside. Because there we can see, oh, this is enemy and I have to hide, I have to protect myself. But the spy who's within, and that is the lust. It's more dangerous than the enemy, than maybe some physical person outside who's beautiful and we want to enjoy. But the lust makes us enjoy that person, even if not. That's why you said, even if we don't enjoy him physically or with the gross senses, we enjoy vicariously, or second-hand enjoyment. Or in our mind, we are trying to enjoy that person. That's why all these hoardings, billboards for advertisements. Why they put pictures of naked women, half-naked women against with everything, even if they're selling batteries for car, and the advertisement is for batteries of a car, and they put a naked woman there. What's that naked woman got to do with the batteries? But they want to uh, titillate the senses of the people. Okay, you're not going to look at the picture of battery, but at least look at the picture of this half-naked woman, and then along with her, you will see the battery, and you get a desire to buy that battery. That's what it is. So this propensity is not that we cannot get rid of it. We can. Krishna will explain later on. But the process is, we have to take up the process seriously. That's all. Tasmatam indriyani ado niyamya bharatrisha papmanam prajahiyenam gyan vijnana nashanam. Therefore, Arjun, Bharats, in the very beginning, curbed this great symbol of sin or lust by regulating the senses, and slay this destroyer by knowledge, self-realization. In the beginning, God is great of lust, or great symbol of sin, which is lust, by regulating the senses. So that's why regulative principles given to us. They are do's and don'ts. So do is chant 16 rounds, don't do all those 4 activities. Progress. So still, even when we are making progress, the deep down desires, they will come out. So we have to be careful, still activities. Could curb the greatest sinful enemy, lust, which destroys the urge for self-realization and specific knowledge of the self. Jnana refers to knowledge of self as distinguished from non-self, or in other words, knowledge that the spirit soul is not the body. Vijnana refers to specific knowledge of spirit soul constitutional position and its relationship to the supreme soul. So the lust, it even covers over that knowledge. Jnana Vijnana Nashanam. Lust is only the perverted reflection of the love of God, which is natural for every living entity. But if one is educated in Krishna consciousness from the very beginning, that natural love of God cannot deteriorate into lust. So from the very beginning of life, but that still those who have taken up the process late in the life, it is still workable, it still acts, it still helps. So like we were discussing the other day, what is in our hand? The activities, the words, or our desires? Actually, it's a desires only that we can try to control, because we'll later get drowned into these. Desires are into cleanse or the new desires. So those can be controlled to certain extent by whatever information we are putting in. So that information we are putting in depends on the kind of association we want to take. Association of the books and association of devotees. In that association, we are little safe, because then we're putting the right association, right information, and the desires can be transformed. So Prabhupada is writing, so from any stage of life or from the time of understanding its urgency, one can begin regulating the senses in Krishna consciousness, devotional service of the Lord, and turn the lust into love of Godhead. So that is a high perfection stage of human life. That is what we are trying to achieve. Text 42. Indriyani parani ahor indriyabhyam param manaha manasastu para buddhir yo buddhe paratastu saha. The working senses are superior to dull matter. Mind is higher than the senses. Intelligence is still higher than the mind. And the soul is even higher than the intelligence. So in the previous verse, Krishna did explain, just engage the senses in the service, in yoga. Many times people ask this question, or oh, when we are chanting, the mind is not there. Or when we are doing other activities and devotions, the mind is not there. When the mind is not there, what is the use of doing these services? And as long as the mind is not controlled, then how can we do the service? But Krishna is saying, at least just engage the senses. By engaging the mind will slowly come under control. Just like little kids, they don't want to go to school, or even when they grow up, they still don't want to go to school. But what do parents do? Parents keep on sending them to school. It's not up to they want, it's they have to do it. And once they start going to school, regularly being forced in the beginning by parents, then they start liking the school. And then they will go on their own. Naturally, they'll go. So similarly, the mind, we keep on chanting, even if the mind is not there, even if we cannot uh, concentrate on the chanting, still keep on chanting, keep on chanting, keep on chanting. Sooner or later, mind will come under control. The senses are different outlets for the activities of lust. Lust is reserved within the body, but it is given vent through the senses. Therefore, the senses are superior to the body. Consciousness. In Christ, the direct connection with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, the hierarchy of bodily functions, as described herein, ultimately ends in the spiritual supreme body. So Prabhupada nicely explained that if the mind is engaged in the transcendental service of the Lord, there is no chance of its being engaged in the lower propensities. But many times the lower propensities take over, even the mind. With intelligence, one has to seek out the constitutional position of the soul and then engage the mind always in Krishna consciousness. That solves the whole problem. For Prabhupada, it's very easy to write. Because Prabhupada is on that level. Then Prabhupada writes, next line, a neophyte spiritualist is generally advised to keep aloof from the objects of the senses. But aside from that, one has to strengthen the mind by the use of intelligence. If by intelligence one engages one's mind in Krishna consciousness by complete surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then automatically the mind becomes stronger. And even though the senses are very strong, like serpents, they will no more be effective than serpents with broken fangs. So that's what it is. We keep on engaging ourselves, and the mind will become stronger, intelligence will become stronger, and we can jump over this ocean of material existence. Text 43. Evam buddhe param buddhva sanstabhyatmanatmana jahi shatrum mahabaho kamarupam durasadam. Thus, knowing oneself to be transcendental to the material senses, mind and intelligence. O mighty armed Arjun, one should steady the mind by deliberate spiritual intelligence, and thus, by spiritual strength, conquer this insatiable enemy known as lust. So Krishna is spending so many verses on this lust topic because it is very important. This is the last verse of the chapter. That this third chapter of Bhagavad Gita is conclusively directive to Krishna consciousness by knowing oneself as the eternal servitor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the material existence of life, one is certainly influenced by propensities for lust and desire, dominating forces of material nature. It is the greatest enemy of the conditioned soul. But by the strength of Krishna consciousness, one can control the material senses, the mind, and the intelligence. One may not give up work and prescribed duties all of a sudden, but by gradually developing Krishna consciousness, one can be situated in a transcendental position without being influenced by the material senses and the mind. So this is a gradual development of Krishna consciousness. It's not that one day we pick up the beads and I'm going to not have any desires, lusty desires. They'll come on. They'll keep on coming. They'll keep on coming. They'll keep on coming. But we keep on fighting. We keep on struggling. We keep on struggling. So even we fall down, or even though we stop or we slow down, we keep going, keep going, keep going. So that is the whole process. And Prabhupada is also one more thing. When we're making progress, as I said, these desires will come out more. And many times, even if the gross desires won't be there, subtle desires will be there. They are more dangerous. Subtle desire of being respected, of lording over, of being in the position of power, those desires will still be there. Desire to control others. So one has to be very careful. And that's what Prabhupada writes. By knowing oneself as an eternal servitor or a servant of Krishna, ultimately we have to understand it's Krishna who's the controller of everything, who's the proprietor, who's the enjoyer. So enjoyer part we can give up, but physical, but subtle desires in the mind, they can still be there. So that also we have to give up. It's not easy to get out of this material world. Gross desires can be given up slowly, but subtle, very difficult, very, very difficult. So one has to control and one has to engage all one's propensities in the service of Krishna. And that's when Krishna tries to make us surrender. What he does in the life of a devotee, gross desires you can give up, subtle desires you cannot, but then Krishna will baffle us, he will frustrate us in our desire or in our path to enjoy those subtle desires. It'll really frustrate us. You want to be the controller? Let's see how much you can control. You want to be respected? He will give us so much of insults, so much that will give up that desire to be respected. That Krishna's job. He will take off. Don't give up, he actually hurts. Radha Prabhu, I thought you were going to ask a question.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you very much for this wonderful class. Actually,
Hare
this
Krishna.
is a struggle going on
Thank
every
you.
day. The struggle to overcome this lustful propensities. So this is a struggle which is going on a daily basis. So sometimes we get very disappointed. Then we think that we'll surrender to Maya. Sometimes this thought comes that the struggle has been going on so long. So now let us leave it. Like let us be free. So what should a devotee do in such situations when he is utterly defeated in the struggle for overcoming Maya?
See, that's one sign of making progress. At least we are aware of there is a struggle. If we're not making progress in bhakti, or if living the life, eat, drink, and be merry, we won't be aware of there is a struggle. Oh, this is natural for me. This is what I'm supposed to do. That sort of thing. At least on the process of bhakti, when we can see that I don't want to do this, but somehow I cannot control myself. See, that is a sign of advancement. And then secondly, again,
But then sometimes,
yeah, go ahead.
no, you please tell me.
But secondly, as long as we again keep on engaging in bhakti process, chant, read, listen, physical service, it will keep us on the track. Even if we get distracted, it will bring us back. And association of devotees, very, very important. It will bring us back. So struggle is there. Even till the time of death, the struggle will be there. And as I said, then the subtle desires, even if physically we cannot do anything, subtle desires of respect, of trying to control, it will be there. And Krishna will take away those desires. And then when he takes away, it really hurts.
Yeah, very true. But the purpose of all these subtle desires, like we have subtle desires, ultimately will it not lead to the gross desires?
Just a second. I don't know where this came from. Subtle desires, yes, if they are not controlled, they'll lead to gross desires. So we have to try to control.
No, the presence of subtle desires, does it not mean that there's a gross desire deep inside?
There could be, or there could be that. I mean, suppose like Prabhupada explains, the deepest desire is of enjoying sex. But what is sex? It's trying to control somebody, or some. One of the acharyas explained sex activity actually is being envious of Krishna. Why he is the enjoyer? I want to be the enjoyer. Especially when he enjoyed with gopis in Ras Leela, we try to be the enjoyer like Krishna. So that is being envious of Krishna. And that is the highest enviousness. So we try to give up, we try to control. So yes, they are connected, gross and subtle. But many times when we cannot do the gross activity, body is feeble, or there's so many devotees present, so many other people present, we cannot do those gross activities, but subtle desire could still be there. It's difficult. It's not easy to get out. Prabhupada wrote, of course, whatever he writes is perfect. Chant 16 rounds, follow 4 regulative principles. He says, I'll take you back. Like when he said something, this statement, and one devotee asked him, Prabhupada, just by chanting 16 rounds and following 4 principles, we can go back? Prabhupada asked him, do you have any doubts? Do you have any doubts in my words? But even this is so difficult. It's not easy.
This is not easy. Yeah.
It's not easy. But then again, living in the material world is not easy at all either. So those who are on this path, they better take it up seriously. It might take 1 lifetime, 2, 3, 10 lifetimes. It might take that. But at least we are making progress.
Prabhuji,
Yes, Mata.
can I add? Means what? When I have certain desire, it is
Yes.
like it is my way of taking that if we have really surrendered to Krishna, and if any gross or any subtle desire come also, let it him. If he has given that desire, let him control it also. So, if I have full faith on him, he will take it back. He will not let me fall into any trap of any type of desire. Should we not consider this and move ahead? Because as we have read in all the scripture that whenever Narad Muni had any or any Deva, anyone had any type of desire, God has given a very beautiful result, and they have treated it very nicely. So he will treat our desire also nicely, and he will increase our bhakti in that way.
That is true, but it depends on the degree of surrender of a devotee.
Okay.
Of course, it's all up to degree of surrender. You are surrendered more, then we will think like that. Let him fulfill my desire. Of course, we are not saying we should try to fulfill,
No.
but if we are less surrendered, we will try to fulfill. But the point that we are making is, even if you fulfill or try to fulfill, and Krishna gives you frustration or he gives you whatever to a certain degree, he let you fulfill the desire. Come back to bhakti. Keep on doing your bhakti
Yes.
activities. That's all.
Yeah, I am. I mean, like, if that desire is not good for my bhakti, then can we not expect that? Okay, if that is not good now, Krishna will not let me go for this desire. This desire will not get fulfilled, and we should be satisfied. If this has not been fulfilled, it was not good for our bhakti. Should we not consider this way every time we have any desire and
But that's what Krishna says. No, in Gita only he's saying that many times, or most of the time, if desire is not fulfilled, it turns into anger. A person becomes angry. And if it is fulfilled, it becomes greed. So, of course, again, it depends on the amount of surrender, or degree of surrender. And we cannot judge anybody that if his desires are fulfilled, he's not surrendered. If they are not fulfilled, he's not surrendered. Whatever. It's between
Correct.
him and his Lord.
Correct.
So we cannot judge others. All we have to do is compassionately try to serve each other. That's all.
And another thing, does this process of bhakti don't make us very sensible to every small things and in our material life? That is also not good, right? Because we have to, means up to an extent, till the time we have to live a material life, being so much sensitive to small activity, sometimes people may consider us insane, right? Because we think
Mm.
everything with that level, that this is related to Krishna, this is related to Krishna.
Actually, we have to let it develop so much that naturally we act like that. We don't even have to think. But again, we don't have to become anarthas. Like these are anarthas, no? When we are trying to enjoy separately from Krishna, we don't have to become anartha conscious. We have to become Krishna conscious.
Yes, correct.
So anarthas will be there. The desires will be there. Let it be so. We keep on working on our bhakti part. And as I said, even if we engage in sense gratification, so what? Give it. Okay, done is done. We cannot change the past. We can only change the future.
Like,
So our present should be okay.
with the process of bhakti, we become so sensible to small things of about others also, that we start praying to Krishna that let not others suffer, let not others suffer with any of the things. But sometimes it feels like, means you go to any extent to resolve others issue, but sometimes people will say, "Arey, why he's doing like that? Means why to think this much about others?" Like, but it is when you think about Krishna, then you don't have that, like you don't act like baniya na कि ये करोगे तो ये करेंगे, वो करेंगे तो वो करेंगे. Like you just do it for others.
Yeah, we do, but at the same time, we have to be sensitive of others' needs, and we don't turn them away. Also, we have to see. So, some maturity we have to have. Of course, devotee is always trying to serve everybody, but we have to be very mature in our approach also.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you,
Hare
Mata.
Krishna. Sorry for these foolish questions.
I guess many devotees, they get shy and they don't ask. Everybody gets benefited. Thank you, Mata.